you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sofia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self-defense. This episode is sponsored by Big Tech's Ordnance, your soon-to-be favorite retailer for all of your firearms needs. BTO believes in only selling high-quality gear for responsibly armed citizens, as well as providing pre- and post-sale support. BTO values firearms training and supports firearms instructors nationwide. They even pay for their staff to train with high-level instructors to ensure that when you, as the consumer, reach out, you are taken care of. Today, we have Des of @MotherPrepper on social media. So I'm so glad you're here, Des. I would love for you to just go ahead and introduce yourself to the pod.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Mother Prepper, otherwise known as Des. I'm excited to be here. I love all of the topics that you want to talk about today. I am here for it. I am pretty much what you see on social media. I'm a mom. I'm a working mom in Northern California. And in the last couple of years, I've really tried to document my own preparedness journey to really showcase and hopefully change the narrative of what preparedness looks like, especially in an urban or suburban setting, because I feel like there's such this idea or perspective that preppers are these lone wolf people who have unlimited food, ammo, a bunker in the side of the mountain. And although those things are amazing, that's not the majority of us. And so I really wanted to share my journey to being more self-reliant, more prepared, and hopefully encourage others to consider what they can do in their own space for their own family, even if it's something as small as creating bug out bags or drilling a fire drill escape for their family, or something where you want to take on additional food storage and taking on these skills that come with preparedness. There's so many ways to take steps in preparedness, and they're going to look different for everybody. But hopefully my journey empowers and inspires others to do the same, because the last couple years alone are great examples of many instances of why preparedness pays off.
Absolutely. Yes, I love your mission, and I'm so thankful that you're here today on the podcast. This is a perspective we have yet to have, so I'm so thankful you're here for that. And I mentioned to you before we started the podcast that I've kind of been prepping. I don't really know if I should call myself a prepper. I'm in that place where I'm not doing it to the extent you are, but I'm also someone who has at least a closet full of materials ready to go at any time, packed up, and I do inventory. I have a little clipboard. So
you're a prepper.
I'm kind of, okay, cool. I'm a prepper. Yay. I feel like I have a stamp of approval, which feels so good. Okay, cool. So that's super good to know. So I'm really glad you're here. And I'd love to know when you got started prepping. And if you don't mind kind of sharing with the listeners why you started.
Yeah, happy to. So it actually started before I had children of my own. And so where we live in Northern California, it was at the time just my husband and I. And we had experienced some crazy rains that year in Northern California. And California has all kinds of severe weather sometimes, between it being super, super dry or just nonstop rain. And this year was, I think they had called it atmospheric river at some point. And so it was just consecutive days of rain. And up here, that much water in that short of a time period really strains our levee system and our overflow in our reservoirs. And so there was a town not too far from us that they were on the brink of their levee system failing. And in fact, parts of it actually did. And what that means is the local areas would have found that they would have been flooded with water, their homes, unable for their car. You only need a few inches or maybe even a foot of water, standing water for your car to not be able to really be able to move. And the traction just gives out. So that was very interesting to kind of witness that so close to home. And I remember thinking to myself, we were completely unprepared if that had been our affected area. And so, and even though the natural event of that time was really this immediate flooding, and it didn't necessarily affect our area, but it was still a possibility. It just really helped me understand in that moment how unprepared I was. If I needed to suddenly flee, I had no way to do that except to try to have as much advance notice as possible, which of course is just a small portion of preparedness, but I wouldn't know what to grab. I have no idea where I'm going. I have no idea if I have like food ready or water. Like, what if the power goes out? And so there was a lot of what ifs that were happening in those moments of this realization. And I remember being so uncomfortable that I didn't have a plan, or I didn't even have an escape. So from there, my preparedness journey really started with bug out bags. I know they're called a few different things in kind of the space: 72-hour bags, survival bags. And so that was kind of my first activity in preparedness, and saying, all right, I live in an urban, suburban area. If something happens, our best chances are to flee, to bug out, to immediately evacuate. And that's just because in our area, the last thing I want to do if there's an emergency is kind of be this like sitting duck. So our best, and this is going to, again, vary for everybody. Your plan of bugging in or bugging out is going to be completely subjective. But for us, bugging out was the best chance at survival. So I made bug out bags for our family. And then, like many things in preparedness, it's never designed to be set in stone, one and done. It's a continued journey. And bug out bags are no different. You really should be looking at what you've packed in the last season, what has expired, what your needs may change. And I always recommend, if you're going to build these survival kits or these bags, to make one per person if the family member is able to carry their own pack. That's going to be a little different for the elderly or for young children, but the effort's still there. And so from there, it's really just taken on, what are some new skills that I can learn? What are different areas of preparedness I can focus on? You'll see in social media, especially right now, there's such a huge awareness around food storage. Like everywhere you look, I know it's a common theme for a lot of folks you think preparedness, sometimes even preparedness and homesteading, you think food storage. And that is great, but I want to make sure I make it clear that's not the only aspect of preparedness. I know a lot of people feel like there's this comfort in knowing you have 6 months worth of food for your family, and that's fantastic, but then what? Right. And so eventually food runs out. I know some folks that have food storage but don't own a generator. Right. And so there's always the very real scenario that the power goes out. What are you going to do then? Sometimes you need power to cook all the food you've stored up. So it's really just this intricacy of different things you want to start thinking about as far as preparedness. It's very easy to get hyper focused in one area and then forget all of the other core parts or core focuses of preparedness. And so that I used food storage as an example, but another one that's easy to do that I'm sure you would know is self-defense, right? Which is a portion of preparedness. But it's super easy to say, like, I'm prepared because I know everything I know about self-defense. I'm like, okay, there are other parts
Yes.
to preparedness beyond that. So I know it was a long-winded explanation as to how I started, but it's kind of been this continual journey since the bug out bags, and it's ever evolving, and I want to continue to find ways to challenge myself and my idea of preparedness, and continue to learn, because it's not just your gear and your supplies, but it's also your skill set and your mindset and your readiness. So it's a holistic approach, I guess, for me.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm a big holistic health person. So I love to hear that it can apply to that as well. And I like that you're provoking thought in all of your followers and anyone that comes in contact with you on social media. I love the point you made. I almost feel slightly called out in like the best way ever, because I
hope it's a good way.
Oh, such a good way, because I have enough to truly just get us to point B. And I'm trying to think if I should say this and how much I should say. So like, I have a very general plan to get to my mom to kind of, I guess, extract her. And then is that like the proper word? Anyway, it sounds really serious, but that's what I use at least. And then we have some family with land not too far from her. And I have all of the like car routes mapped out. And I also have like alternatives to those routes, and then also walking routes, anything we would need to get from point A to B to C. But point C has no water or food storage, because that's just my family's land. And the idea, I guess, was I led with that focus of wanting to protect against essentially like human zombies, the people that don't prepare for an
Right.
apocalyptic situation, and then come and steal your goods. So they're zombies in that manner.
They
So I've
exist.
always been right. So I've always been focused on like getting those people to not be able to, take our goods. But when I really think about it, there's no like food or water. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation today.
Good.
Just, letting you know that.
I
So
mean,
speak.
yeah, that's good because it's already a thought process where you think of, plan A, plan B, plan C. And just because there's land, you could still have the opportunity to say, like, is there wildlife that we could hunt on this land? Are there ways for us to grow crops on this land? And what are some ways to ensure that, long term, maybe that there's water? There's a lot of things you can do with that, but just starting with a plan is so important because there's a lot of people who have not even done that part.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, I appreciate that so much. And that is the first step. So I would like to know, for someone who's maybe just super new, they're listening to this episode, they're like, wow, I did not expect this conversation today. What would you say the first few steps should be, or how to build a solid bug out plan or bug in plan?
As far as preparedness goes, because it's so individual and because it's so unique to every family, I think it's kind of a readiness assessment in the beginning, right? Because some people have grown up hunting, and so they're very secure with that. If push come to shove, they had to lean on those skills. And some people are really, same thing, are very strong gardeners, and they have that skill set and they have that background. And then there's some folks who don't have either, right? So I think you really have to approach your preparedness from a realistic standpoint and evaluate, where are my glaring gaps? What are my needs? And so I think a lot of people want to just dive into this. And I always make this joke sometimes on podcasts that some people just go out and they buy like a pallet of Spam and they're like, I'm good. No, it's not it. Although Spam is lovely, there's more planning that really should kind of go into this as a family. And so I always like to encourage, if you really want to start taking steps into preparedness, it's a very good exercise to just kind of sit down with your family, really write out what the needs of each individual family member is. And what I mean by that is not just like, what are we going to eat for the next 6 months? It's things like allergies, medical conditions that are going to be a little bit trickier to plan for. Also understanding, if you have young kids, what is that going to look like in a pinch? Do you need disposable diapers? Do your children consume formula? Are there any major things you have to take into account? And so that should really be something you're looking at for every family member. Food allergies. What do they like to eat, right? Because I feel like also if you're sitting down and you're making kind of a food storage plan for your family, and all of them hate beans, why would you buy gallons and gallons of dried beans? And so just to kind of set the tone for what you want to plan for is a great exercise. But also, as you start to go beyond that, after you've assessed their needs and the limitations and challenges that you know about already, because you're always going to have new challenges that pop up, I think it's really important to view what are going to be some of your most likely situations that you would need to prepare for. And so if I live in like the Arizona desert, I'm probably not going to be planning for floodwaters every other month, right? And so you want to just try to be, I don't want to using the word realistic because truly anything can happen. You want to just try to be focused on what you would encounter. We don't really get snow blizzards where I am. It's a very dry and warm climate. And so I'm probably never going to be prepping for being snowed in, at least while I'm in my local area. And so that helps me plan more efficiently. I'm not going to be looking for packable down jackets that I can like pile up. But maybe I will be more tailored to hot weather, and how can I be prepared for that, since most of the months in our year are extremely hot, like right now. So for us, for example, out here, our biggest threat in my suburban environment are grass fires. California is always on fire. Let's not take away from that. California is always on fire. But Grass fires, they're quick. They move really, really fast, especially in the winds that we have out here. And so, if you imagine kind of the typical forest fire, grass fires are even faster. And so there's a huge risk that if you stay put, you may be surrounded by flames or in your house pretty soon, because all of our homes are made of wood. They're not like as indestructible as they are maybe back east with different weather conditions. So really, take the time to make a personal assessment of your readiness in this moment, identify areas that you can focus on. I think it's very overwhelming for some folks to sit there and say, okay, I need to tackle all of it today. And that's not realistic. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to burn through your budget. You're going to just be completely overwhelmed. And a lot of people give up through that process because they're like, well, if I can't even get prepared in a week, what am I doing? I'm just going to give up. If something happens, then that's our fate. And that
Yes.
is it happens. People get burnt out. But
Right.
that's why it is a journey. It's not meant to be a sprint. It's not designed to just be this milestone that you are at peak preparedness. It is designed to always be an exercise where you evaluate what your gaps are, how you can improve and adjust. And, they're not always going to be wins. Like I remember I took a trip somewhere and I had forgot that I took out sunscreen. And we were going to the park. And of course, like you would think, have sunscreen, but I had left it in a bag in a different car. So that for me in that moment was a gap. I'm like, I can't believe I forgot sunscreen. I'm supposed to have everything. What the heck? But it happens. And so now you can evaluate and adjust and make changes for next time. But, make a realistic assessment, plan for what you're likely to be encountered with, because that's a great foundation and you can continue to build on that. And really taking it at a pace that makes sense for you, because it's so easy in this space to get burnt out and to feel so overwhelmed that you are then pushed to inaction. And that's not helpful for anybody.
Absolutely. I really like that you're bringing that up. I feel like that applies to so many subjects. Like I am a personal trainer on the side, and I see that happen a lot when clients realize it's going to take months, sometimes even years to get where they want to go. And it's so easy to realize, or at least try to accept fate, and because it's easier to face than the challenge of being patient and giving yourself grace. So I really like that you brought that up. As far as the core areas that need assessment, would you say that's like food, water, and then self-defense, or is there more to that?
There are, and it's, food and water. You're always going to hear about food, water, and defense, because we need those basic foundational things to survive. But as you start to get a better handle on some of those things, there are other things that you can branch out to, things like communication, things like navigation, things like area intel. And what I mean by that is, do you have a community that you've been able to build and trust as kind of a trusted circle of folks that you can share either preparedness ideas with or a strengthened community, so that there's kind of like this neighborhood watch, right? Or that you would feel comfortable having a community garden with these people. Because as much as you hear about lone wolves in the preparedness space, there is strength in numbers and trusted numbers. And so that is always a thing. And even something like personal wellness and fitness. A lot of people do not take into account what the impact of your physical wellness and fitness, what that means in emergency readiness and preparedness. Listen, if I'm struggling to climb a few flights of stairs, how can I expect to throw my toddler over my shoulder and run for safety for a long time? Yes, adrenaline is a big part of that, but if I'm not taking care of my personal body, I can't really expect it to perform under incredibly hard conditions and try to save somebody else, like my children who depend on me. And so, and I only bring that up because that's kind of been the one I've been slacking on the most. And so this year I really took it upon myself to really invest in not only like the self-defense part, which is always been an interest to me, but the wellness that comes with it. So things like sleeping on time,
Oh yeah.
Nutrition and, staying active. I was always inconsistent all over the place until like I really just was like, I am winded running to the mailbox and running back. So it's
Totally
it's often
understandable.
forgotten.
Right. No, well, good for you because I love that you're being vulnerable and honest about the fact that, it's not always 100% perfect in every area all the time. I like that you're admitting that you're growing as an individual as well, who has already kind of cultivated a community for this purpose. So I love that. I'd like to know if you don't mind sharing what you've been
Yeah.
doing. I've seen that you have been training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but what
Oh
else are you
yes.
doing? Well, that too. I want to hear
So
about that, please.
honestly, I feel like every time I get to be a guest, I love talking about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because it's really been so life
Good.
changing for me. So I had enrolled my daughter originally in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and because I wanted her to just build this habit very young, I was like, "You're not getting a choice. You're going to do Jiu Jitsu." So
I love it.
um, I started her in the courses and just sitting there as a parent watching the class week after week. I felt compelled to say that I need to take this on because the art form of it, the grappling, the fitness that you get out of it is like all the benefits. I can really take advantage of that as well. And so I jumped right in, and I've been hooked ever since. And so I have really been able to see such um, just incredible benefits just from the physical aspect of jujitsu because you're simulating murder every time. I mean, it's
Yes.
very
Yeah.
you kind of are, and so it's very hard, and it's so mental. It is so much more mental and emotional than I think people really give it credit for because your first instinct. Some people who start jujitsu when they're on the mats and they're rolling with somebody who's obviously more experienced, your first gut reaction sometimes is to bite, to kick, to like everything to get away. And you have to try to calm the noise in your mind and realize like, I am not going to die, even though it feels like it, but it's so much more than just brute strength and speed. And in fact, I would argue those are only, components of it. So jujitsu has kind of been the one thing in my life that I've stuck with for this long as far as physical activity. I tried CrossFit and I was like, this ain't for me. I tried like
That's okay.
just I tried just lifting when I could with and sticking to that with friends and coworkers on a schedule. I got burnt out really quick with that because I also felt like I didn't know what I was doing, and so now all of the additional like lifting and physical fitness parts that I do are all just to help support me to be stronger in jujitsu. And so I absolutely love jujitsu as far as for fitness, as well as for self defense. I think it is an incredible art form and sport, and so I would encourage everybody to try it. But that's probably as far as physical fitness, that's probably been the most steadfast one. As I told myself, I have to take my wellness more seriously. Sleep for me is always a balance because I work full time. I love to do this content creation when I can, but it is secondary to my very demanding day job. And then, of course,
Right.
family and,
Right.
and other activities. So sleep is probably the one I'm trying to get better at as far as getting myself more than like 4 hours a night. So I'm working on it,
Totally
but
right. Yes.
it's a balance. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm not a mom yet and my sleep is already bad. So I've definitely not to just like take over with my story here, but I've had moments where I'm like, I've got to get this figured out before I like become a mother because that's when like it gets even
You
harder.
won't
Like
sleep.
another
Yeah.
step. Yes, that's I've heard that and I'm like, why wouldn't I take advantage of it now? And I know one day I'm going to think back and like kick myself probably, but I totally understand. Sleep is so easy to neglect, and it is like
Oh yeah.
probably the most important of them all. So I love that you're bringing that up. Survival includes sleep. I mean, we do it for a third
It
of our lives,
does.
so so important. And good for you with the jiu-jitsu thing. I just want to say, I'm a blue belt dropout. I won't give my story, the full story, because I'm sure whoever's listening has heard it before. I say it a lot in my podcast. I've broken my nose twice, and my surgeon begged me to stop. I'm sorry, I've broken it 5 times. I've had 2 surgeries, and my surgeon begged me
Oh
to stop.
my
So
goodness.
I might do some very, very light technique training with a good friend of mine that I trust, with like a helmet on, like no shit, the whole setup, to make sure that I don't, risk it. But I truly love jiu-jitsu. I've done it I did it for upwards of probably 3-4 years. And
I love
a lot
that.
of people, thank you. And a lot of people along the way would say, man, I want to do that, but I'm going to wait until I get in shape. And I would be like, what? Do it
Yeah.
to get in
Oh
shape.
man.
Like
Exactly.
it's like endurance, strength training, and then the mental side, which you do get in the gym. Yeah, I would say like lifting, there's absolutely like that side where you have to have that willpower and push yourself. But there's nothing quite like fearing for your life during a workout.
Oh yeah.
So I
I don't
love
even
that
get
you
a chance
brought
to
that
like
up.
I don't even get a chance to warm up sometimes. We walk in and we set foot on the mats and somebody is like pulling me into their guard. I'm like, what's happening? And so it's just, I mean, and it builds such an incredible like camaraderie and brotherhood and sisterhood with the people you roll with. You're trusting your partner with your body. You're being purposefully vulnerable, and you are trusting your partner to recognize when your body can't do that, or if they can feel like you could push a little bit more. And so it's such this beautiful unspoken dance that you have with the people that you roll with. And I'm sure as well, you did it for a long time, and there's really nothing like it. And um, it's never like monotonous and boring because you are just too busy fighting for your life. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that you've had that in your life, and I'm excited for even the technique seminars that you're going to lead. That is going to be fantastic because there's so much you can learn. Even if it was focused on just framing and either closing up the space or creating space, that alone, I feel like this is such an incredible piece of self-defense that so many people take for granted.
Absolutely. That was beautifully said. And I love that your daughter's in it. I've already told my husband, like, one of my non-compromisables before we got married is that our kids are going to be in jiu-jitsu. I mean, there's so many benefits to it. And especially if we do have boys, that's something we've talked about. We're not like a huge fan of like football just because of like he's a paramedic and he's had several concussions. We're not huge fans of the concussive potential. And
It's
so
a
our
lot.
kind of like, it is, and our like middle ground is jiu-jitsu, because I mean, I've taken so many pre-concussive blows when I was training for Muay Thai fights. Like I've lost vision in like my left eye for like 3 days one
Oh my
time. And so
gosh.
we're in this place where we're like, so maybe no Muay Thai quite yet, or no football, but like jiu-jitsu kind of meets all of the criteria for like boys like may have some aggression they need to get out and they need to learn how to control, and like girls need to learn how to use their space and even your voice, like when you have to tap out and you can't use your hand, and like also communicating with your partner. There's so much where like it truly gives you that like verbal exercise.
Yeah.
I don't know if like that's something I've never really thought about that until right now, but that's
no, it's so true. And I feel like it's such a great, like you'd mentioned, it's such a great compromise of like something that's full contact, but gives you the control enough to decide when that's going to be right. And so there's so much that you can learn from it. And even just learning how to relearn your body and what it's capable of is just so powerful. Cause I feel like, I remember when I started, like, I have muscles that I didn't even know about in my legs that I'm like being forced to use. And I'm like, where did these come from? And so and I purposely will train with men. Most of my opponents are men who are much larger, much bigger and stronger and faster than I am, because if there's ever an unfortunate incident where I'm taken down, or if there's a threat, it's probably not going to be somebody who's my size or smaller. It's probably going to be, I'm going to be at a disadvantage in some way. And so I'm just at this point, I'm still a white belt that's learning. It's a continued journey, but I feel like I'm still in the season of embracing the suck because it's going to suck for a while.
Yes, that's a really great way to put that. And then once you become a blue belt, it's like those people that were holding back on you stop holding
Oh
back.
yeah.
So there's always at each tier what I would assume is, a new challenge. So I didn't get to experience the blue belt one for a while, as long as would have liked to, but I'm glad that you're
That's
enjoying
awesome.
it, and I'm so happy that it's talked about on the podcast. I don't think we've talked about jiu-jitsu for a while. Are you in search of top-notch gear that exceeds your expectations? Look no further than GPS, brought to you by Go Outdoors Incorporated. GPS has been dedicated to crafting the finest products for hunting and shooting since 2002. As someone who frequents the gun range, my GPS bag is a staple to safely and effectively haul my gear. Their specialized bags are designed to keep all of my valuable equipment secure and organized. With GPS, you can experience the ultimate peace of mind. There are 3 exciting product lines: GPS Tactical, GPS Wild About Hunting, and GPS Wild About Shooting provide the perfect solution for your specific needs. So whether you're on a hunting expedition or hitting the range, GPS is your reliable companion. To choose a bag that fits your needs, use code SheetShield at checkout to save and to support the pod. That's SHESHIELD at checkout. Anyway, I'm kind of pivoting a little bit. I've also seen that you're getting into, or maybe you have already been in it for a while. I've just seen your videos of you shooting. So,
Oh
where did you
yeah.
get started? Why? I
Oh,
want to hear it all.
it started. What's funny is I bought my first firearm, my first pistol. I think I was like 21, and I didn't touch it
Okay.
for like 8 years. It sat in a box, and I was very much one of those firearms owners where I'm like, having it is all I need, and I'm like, oh man, that is a terrible way to look at this. And so I didn't really start getting involved and really challenging myself to become proficient and safe and continually push myself until probably the last year or two. I feel like finding the environment and a coach that you feel safe with, that you feel is encouraging, makes a world of a difference. So I was very fortunate to take a course, kind of like a refresher course, with a coach local to me here. And I said, I'm coming back. I'm coming back every month. And so I've been coming back every
Awesome.
month. My firearms coach, I'm very lucky that I have a kind of like a squad, and so like a team that are his um, frequent students, and a coach that is really invested in me growing as a shooter in a way that is safety first, but also pushing myself to really be in high stress situations and seeing how I'm going to perform. Because the reality is, if there's ever a threat, you're probably not going to say, "Hey, Mr. Badman, bad guy, can you stand still for a second? Actually, could you come a little closer? I really need you within like 5 yards, please."
That
Oh,
is
that's great. Yeah. Oh, that's
such
great.
a
Please
good
don't move.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I feel like a lot of people, and I live in California, right? So getting a permit to carry is difficult or non-existent in many counties. So I'm very fortunate that I have that opportunity to carry. I think it is both a right and a privilege, given the state of things. um, but that privilege comes with the idea that you're going to continue to train. I think you kind of take that unwritten oath that you really should invest in this. You have the capacity to end someone's life. If push come to shove, you should be very confident in your ability to use this tool. And so that's kind of, and I'm sure that's not shared by everybody, but that is my opinion. And so I took training. I still do take training very seriously, and I try to train as much as I can with my schedule allowing. But I
Yeah.
started a year and a half ago, and it started with just basic, firearms handling, malfunction clearing. And then my coach started to really offer courses and time with me to build in. He would have us run for a while and then have us shoot and see what our accuracy was like after our blood had been pumping, or we're in high stress situations, or from different angles behind barriers. I think my favorite and most eye-opening courses with him has been low light situations. And the likelihood of you having to draw your weapon and defend yourself in a low light is actually quite high. If you take a look at what crime, the typical hours of crime, there's a very, very real possibility that if you have to defend yourself, you may not have optimal lighting conditions. And that doesn't mean like pitch black, but that could mean like, is that person behind in the shadows have a cell phone in their hand or a knife? So you have to think of the very real situations as a firearms owner of what could that look like, and that's kind of how we train. And then more recently, I've started to train, I guess, USPSA shooting competitions. That is very new for me.
I saw that too. That's so cool.
It's cool for you because you're very good at what you do. For me, I was in the car. No, I was in the car and I was like, I was in my car. I parked. We got to the shooting range. I went from like excited to I'm going to throw up in like 2 seconds. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, what am I even doing here? What happened? So, I mean, part of the great thing of having a really fantastic squad that you train with is that they are constantly pushing you. And so when one of them starts competing, eventually they kind of just all push you to do that. And so I kind of got bullied into it for all the right reasons, of course. But man, I took the intro class and I was just like, I am a pile of trash. What's happening? So the timer goes off and it's like instant amnesia. Whatever stage planning I had in my mind is gone. I don't even know what day it is. I have no idea what's happening right now. I've dropped mags. I went left when I said I was going to go right. And I'm like, where am I? What's happening? So it's very nerve-wracking, but it's kind of the same kind of forced simulation that we just discussed with jiu-jitsu, where you're going to be in some really frenzied situations sometimes. And so how can you best simulate that so that you can calm your mind and know how to react in the most efficient and safe manner? And so that's just USPSA competitions are just another part of that, I guess. They're a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. They're a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just started it, so I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm happy to be there. So
I totally understand. So I just want to make sure you know, I've only shot 6 competitions. I'm
that's
no
5
guru,
more than I have. So.
But I've totally been there. And so did you get disqualified at your first match?
No. So thankfully I did not get disqualified. I was super scared about breaking 180. So I was like, I'm not turning. Okay. I was like, you're going to have to yell at me because I'm not going to turn around. So thankfully I had that beat into me, but no, I had a malfunction with my trigger. And so I was asked to stop because my trigger made my pistol go full auto. And they're like, well, you can't do that here. So,
okay.
So we were able
Definitely
to fix it. Thankfully.
Good.
Yeah, but no
so
DQs
I was
yet.
Say, it didn't sound like you had been. If it had, I wouldn't have just asked out straight up.
Oh, no, you're fine.
But, I was going to say that is, from what I've been told, that is the sign of success for your first USPSA match, not getting DQ'd, because it happens all too often. It's especially because there is that almost blackout once the beep? The timer, there's a word for it, whatever. The timer goes off and it's really easy to just turn towards everyone behind you with your pistol and think everything's okay.
We had a few, and I remember feeling even when I serve as the RSO for my normal firearms training, that we use obviously the blue or the orange fake gun, right, to show safe handling. And even when somebody turns with this orange gun, I'm like, whoa. So it's very nerve-wracking. But we had a few DQs for that same reason, and it's just so easy. Like you said, you're pointing down range, and then somebody calls your name, and you're like, what? And you're like, oh my god.
Absolutely.
So it's super easy. It takes a lot of training and discipline for sure.
Absolutely. And side note, I don't think I've ever told this story on the pod, but when I was 9 years old, my uncles let me shoot, and my I was shooting this was a Beretta. I'm not trying to say anything against Beretta. I've yet to shoot a Beretta since, I think. I'm almost nervous to. It jammed, which looking back,
Oh,
like that could have been a hang fire totally or
yeah.
whatever. So I turned towards my uncles and was like, guys, it's not working. Like just kind of
Oh
flailing
my
this
God.
around. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, my like uncle, who's was quite a bit larger than me, is like barreling towards me. Everyone else has hit the floor, and everyone's screaming. And it was like just this moment of like I just genuinely did not understand. No one really explained it to me, at least in a way that like they didn't check that I knew what they meant by downrange
Yeah.
or something like that. So my whole family, up until I started becoming like a gun person, made fun of me, and they're like, you're never going to
Oh
be able to
man.
shoot, like, right, like they would, in a funny way. It was always done in a funny way, but like now I have a page for that, and I'm instructing firearms, so it's like a really big change, but it happens to the best of us. You can have the best intentions and turns. So,
Yeah.
and
Let's come
I
full
think it's good to
circle.
keep that
So
practice. It absolutely has. And I feel the same way when people even point a completely unloaded gun, even if they have like shown me a couple times, I still feel like almost offended that it's pointed. And so
yeah.
I like what my USPSA instructor, before I moved across the state, he would actually break his gun down and just use the frame of the gun. So
Mm,
there's no slide, bolt, anything that really makes you feel like you have a gun pointed at you. So he would do that to show things that you really could only see from the front view of the gun. I
gotcha.
liked that.
That's
But I
awesome.
totally understand you. And I think that's a really good practice to keep up and just tell people
I
like,
love
hey,
that.
treat it like it's live. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
Very
fantastic.
cool. And did your training with pistols, did that come from the prepper side of you, or is
It
it
was
kind of
largely
just
fueled.
everyday?
No, that's a great question. Because before that, I had really only taken like a handful of courses, and even then, my instructors were very aggressive and aggressive
Yeah.
in the way where I say like, there's only one way to hold this gun, and if you're not doing it my way, you're doing it the wrong way. I'm like, well, not everybody's hands are shaped that way, and so it was very discouraging, and that's why I feel like when you're in an environment that is encouraging and inspiring, there's so much that can happen. So I didn't pick a firearm back up until I actually after I'd had my daughter, and so it took me kind of really leaning into preparedness and becoming a parent to think that I really needed to be aware of my capability as a firearms owner. And, at that time, I didn't have the permit to carry for my own self defense. That came right after I started training more with a firearm. I realized I have this unique opportunity in California to take this on to become a permit holder. I should move forward with that. And so it wasn't something that just a light bulb moment. It was more of, I really want to become more self-reliant. I want to depend on myself for my own self-defense, because I feel like even in the media, we've seen it so many times where people are more quick to whip out their cell phone and record what's happening rather than to provide aid. And in some very, very real situations, sometimes it's super dangerous to get involved, right? To try to save this person. Maybe you have your children with you, and I would not blame somebody who has their young children if I need assistance, and that means they have to you know possibly intervene with their children with them. I don't even know how to feel about that, because that is, as a parent, you're torn between being a good Samaritan and jumping in versus leaving your young children for a minute to try to figure what you can do to even provide aid, and that's let alone if the assailant is armed. And so I really wanted to lean on myself to be more self-reliant in that space and owning my self-defense, because I say this a few times in a lot of my content where you are you are your own first responder. You can't always rely on folks around you to intervene. Even first responders take time to get to you, precious seconds that you may not have. And so you have to know what your body's capable of. You have to know how to use your tools if you choose to carry self-defense tools. That was just such a gap in my own preparedness that I felt so uncomfortable that it existed. And so I wanted to take even small strides to kind of bridge that gap. And I ended up really falling in love with the journey of learning. It's, cold start. There's nothing like it. It's better than coffee.
Absolutely. It is.
It really is. And honestly, you're challenged with really improving your accuracy and creating more distance and then maintaining that accuracy and then your speed. And then you even, your ability to move around and still, acquire your target and, get your hits in. And so it's such a personal progression game with yourself that you can continue to train and really see some fantastic results with, consistency. So I talk about this with especially the women in my life. I, can blab about firearms and jujitsu all day long. And those usually are in tandem. But it's just such a space that I feel like, especially women don't really take the time to explore. I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you've heard this too, where you have just an open conversation about self-defense and you always get the response of, well, my husband is always with me. My husband will protect me. I'm like, what? Okay, that's cool and all, but what about the times like you're in the women's restroom? What about, the times where your husband's like not there? Because it's not always going to be this 24/7 thing. And so,
yes,
I feel like a lot of people do not think that they would ever be in that situation. And, I don't want to be the, bringer of doom, but the very real possibility does exist. This world's, you never know. So you might as well do what you can to be better prepared, even if that's small steps. It's going to be better than what you were doing yesterday.
Absolutely. And I do get that comment a lot. And I think it's good to provoke thought, like, oh, really? Like, he goes everywhere with you? So
yeah.
The gym, like, you almost make them think a little bit. And what I've learned is that's usually someone telling you like they don't want to talk about it sometimes. Like, I don't know. It depends it's sometimes difficult to tell because it's always, let me back up a little bit. I'm rambling at this point.
No, you're good.
What I've noticed is people will start a conversation with me if they like say they're my a friend of like my husband and they meet me and really all they know about me is my like Fit for Fia page because he's tagged me in something. And so they'll bring up like, hey, like, I think what you're doing is really cool. I've wanted to get into self-defense. And then I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool. Like, let's talk about it. And I'll like open up the conversation because I always have this thought in the back of my mind, like, what if I didn't ask and they were like really needed to talk about it or they really genuinely meant it. So sometimes that will then come up. And if I get the vibe that it's like, oh, my husband's with me all the time, like I'm really okay. I've thought about it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe they just don't want to talk. But sometimes I have asked them like, really everywhere with you. That's impressive. Like that's great for you, I guess. I totally understand.
Cool.
That's a really difficult. Yes. Yeah. It's a difficult. Yeah. It's hard.
You're so much more nice than I am because I am very brash when it comes to this topic. Cause I'm just like, you hear yourself, right?
Right.
So, and maybe that's just the Bay Area in me that never left. But it's, I hate to say that I call people out on their bullshit, but I am happy to if it truly does not make sense, or if I'm like, did you just hear what you said to yourself? So it just,
right.
I feel like I'm pretty bullish when I ask these questions because I already know the answer, and I know that everybody could benefit from just taking on self-defense in a different way. And it doesn't even have to be firearms. It could be you having pepper gel spray, you having a tactical flashlight or a flashlight with you. I mean, you could blind somebody and it'll give you precious seconds to like slip away. There's so many options, but I just feel like people are so negligent and they're so they fail to recognize that this is even a possibility, and that's the first mistake. And so I'm pretty bullish when I have these conversations. If I feel like there's somebody who's truly could benefit from just having the discussion, I feel like I lean in harder when they're like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, but we should really talk. It doesn't make me a lot of friends. No, it doesn't make me a lot of friends. But at the same point, I feel
quality over quantity. So
I guess, yes, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like those that are so disconnected from the idea of this being a reality are the ones that need somebody to like shake them and say like, you should think about this. And so,
absolutely.
and I just feel like the people who are interested in having those conversations that want to get to know you and to be a part of your life to help gain that knowledge, they'll stay. And the ones that won't, maybe they'll just have the thought in their mind and have the conversation elsewhere.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic, I don't know what just happened. It sounded like I had a demonic possession under my voice,
no,
but
good.
That was just my voice cracking. So I have to ask you this. So anytime I tell someone I'm in like the self-defense world, gun world, it's usually men, but I've gotten it from some women. The response is usually like, so I know not to mess with you now. So I would like to know, how many times do you get the response from people of like, well, I know who to call if the apocalypse happens?
Oh, all the time. So it's either like, oh, okay, I won't mess with you. And then I'm snarky, especially in real life. And I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't.
Good for you.
So, no. Yes. I mean, I can pick up if they're being dumb, and so I'll just meet them there. And
absolutely.
But I get it all the time. I'll just go to your house, and I'm like, good luck. We won't be here because we bug out. So yeah, and right. And some people have taken like incredible offense to it, and I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. We made a plan. I don't know where you're going, but we have a plan where we're going. And I feel like that's probably most of the time, that's a harder conversation for the people who are closer to you, like you're in your circle of like friends or family. And I feel like I get a chance to diffuse that because I talk about it so often, and I say things like, Auntie Jane, you guys should really think about what you guys want to do as far as like a bug out, because the fires were crazy last year. This year's going to be even worse. Start thinking about what you want to do. And so I try to always talk about it in a way that puts the onus on them, because I know the moment I'm like, I have a plan for the people, and the people who are involved in my plan are aware of the plan. And I'm happy to help you if you have questions or if I can provide any support, but you're not in my plan. Sorry.
Right.
But I mean, and I feel like it shouldn't be a surprise. For the people who are in my inner circle, it really isn't. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, I'll just come to your house. And I'm like, we won't be here, but you're welcome to whatever we left behind, because it's probably not gonna, and I feel like also when you are a prepper, or if you are focused on preparedness, especially if you are like me and your first real plan of action is to bug out, there is a very real possibility you're going to be leaving a good amount of your supplies. And that's always, the case. I can't take years and years and years like worth of food and supplies and heirlooms and photos. I can't take that with me. So we have an idea and a system of like, if we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, one day of what we would take, and kind of that system approach and how to do that quickly. So there's there's a very, very real risk that a lot of people feel like, why would I prep all this stuff if I can't take it with me? You can take a portion that gives you a higher survival chance than not taking anything, but you have to come to terms with the fact that you may not be able to grab everything. And you have to be okay with that. And I feel like that those are one of the questions I get the most, especially in an urban and suburban preparedness space, where people are like, you just told me to do all this food storage, and now if there's a fire, I can only take like a fourth of it. I don't like that. I'm like, I don't like it either, but it gives you taking a fourth with you and getting your family out before a fire or flood is going to be way better than you spending half the day packing up all your stuff, and so there's, built in, it's kind of, it's not, nobody likes to think about spending time, effort, and money on building a supply list and inventory that they potentially would be leaving behind, but you kind of build in that redundancy so that you have the option to take what you can travel with very quickly and get the hell out of here. Because sometimes, for where we live, if we get the evacuation notice for a grass fire, we have maybe 10 minutes before that's at our door, especially in places like Southern California, where there's a lot of dry, hilly terrain. Like you hear about a lot of the fires in Southern California and in the LA area. Yeah. That travels fast. The wind out there, the Santa Ana winds, they are strong, and all you need is a little bit of ash and flame to really carry that for miles and miles. And so and that's part of that assessment of, you need to take a look at your family's readiness and what would be kind of the most likely to happen as far as natural disasters go, because then you can kind of plan for it. The same thing goes for tornadoes. How much time do people really have for tornadoes if they need to either hunker down, if they have a basement, or completely flee and get out of the path? There's not a lot of time to act. So you can't spend all that precious time worrying about the pallet of Spam you spent $400 on. So,
that's a really good point. You've got a problem with Spam, don't you?
I love Spam. No, I love Spam. I'm half Filipino. We love Spam. So, but no, I joke with that, but a lot of people are very upset at the fact that they may have to be in a situation where they leave a portion of their supplies or their home. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Do you worry about that, or do you try to get to safety? I think that's a choice you're going to have to make.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's good to know that Spam has made the list. So that's awesome. Those aren't that's not a
have
myth.
You seen, okay. No, have you seen the shelf life on Spam? It's pretty generous.
It's not actually.
Okay. Take a look at Spam and see how long it lasts on your shelf. It's quite impressive. It's made the list.
Okay. Will do. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have so many places I want to go from here, but I think what I would like to start with is, and I know we're like almost an hour in, so I say start, but to kind of go into the prepper stuff, I'm so glad we talked about jiu-jitsu and guns. And I am curious how your setup has changed now that you have included guns, or maybe you already had guns, but as far as the materials you are collecting to keep your guns in good shape, so maintenance and the ammo, how's your setup changed with the addition?
It's definitely, so things like maintenance have definitely been prioritized because I train more often now than I ever have. And so I am constantly challenged with how can I take the time to break down my entire firearm and then put it back together? So the knowledge of really being aware of this as a tool and as a machine, and understanding your firearms. That is a space where I'm continuing to learn, because if there's ever a challenge where I need to fix something, then I need to figure that out. Right. And then maintenance. So things like, do I have all the right supplies to properly clean and maintain my firearms? Because if things hit the fan, I can't just go to the store and get more of it, And so that's just another thing that you have to think ahead and try to map out your usage and how frequent, so that you would be prepared to service your firearms in the event that you can't just send it in for servicing or buy extra supplies to maintain it. But some of the planning has changed. I know when we started to really take firearms training more serious, I made the decision to standardize most of our defensive rounds as far as for pistol, 9mm. It made no sense to me to have different calibers that I would have to stock and hunt for and find good pricing for, and then have them organized in all of these different containers. So I had just made the decision, I'm going to standardize on 9. That's what I carry. That's what I train with as far as pistols. and then kind of do that same exercise for rifles and other firearms, so that I was able to, if I found a great opportunity to stock up on ammunition, I wasn't having to look for different things that would only work with certain firearms. It was, and pricing wise, it was just a better deal because I could buy one and in bulk. So that was another thing that was interesting. And then different, it was helpful for me to really test and try different ways to conceal and holsters and what that looked like for women. Thankfully, there's way more options now. For a long time, there were not. But that is very important to me to be able to say, am I able to conceal carry, especially if I know where I'm going, and I want to be able to take my firearm with me, and am I comfortable, and will I be able to get to my firearm in a safe manner that isn't like spending too much time or risking discharging around because I can't can't clear my garment fast enough. So all of those things are very small. It sounds like they would be small details, but through my firearms handling journey, I've incorporated into my overall thought process of what would this look like long term if I had to service my firearms by myself? And what would that look like for just an everyday usage of making sure that I have my firearm with me in different outfits for different weather and in a way that's comfortable, so that I'm not also printing and making it completely obvious and becoming a target myself. So there's a lot now that you asked me that question, I feel like there is a lot of complexity that comes with that, with being a safe and firearms owner, that you really just don't think about until you're in that moment. You're like, suddenly I have 8 holsters for the same firearm because I have to make sure I'm comfortable, yes, and that it conceals in a way that is an advantage to me. So
absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. I was kind of curious because I know you mentioned you didn't train with them for a while and then you started getting into it. So that's really cool to know. And I feel like that's really easy to kind of overlook. So really glad we talked about that. The next thing I'm going to be selfish with, because I just really want to know your thoughts
sure.
on this. So when it comes to balancing, and this is something I've experienced issues with, I have like a go outfit. So like, I'm talking like from underwear to socks. I guess that's underwear. I don't know. To like my Under Armour shirt. And I even have like some 511 pants that are just for bug out purposes. I don't pull them out, even though they look pretty good on me. So when it comes to a bug out outfit and like all of the tactical gear that you might want to wear, how would you say you should prioritize? And I know this is, we talked about it before and you've said it already, everything is situationally dependent. But say in a particular situation, you have to go on foot and you maybe have a vest you have on for first aid, maybe some mags for like an AR, but you're also having to carry a backpack. Is that a situation you've thought of before, or have any advice on that?
You're right. It is going to vary, right? Because you also have to take a look at how can you still remain gray man in a situation where there's complete panic and you don't want to become a target yourself. Right. And so far, our area, seeing people with like military tactical backpack, it's not abnormal. But some areas, like if I was in downtown LA, where everybody's got really nice, cool, flashy stuff, and I'm over here in my tactical bug out bag, I'm sure I'm gonna stick out. So it's very situational in that way. But for me, I like to think of things as, what are ways that I can still be very muted in how I appear, and how can I conceal in a way that doesn't give me away that I'm carrying an entire vest under like an over jacket or something like that. But I like to try to go for things that are high utility and high comfort, because you have to feel that you may be in these pants and this shirt for a long time, and you want to have the ability to have maximum utility. So things like pants that actually have pockets, because I know some pants for women have no pockets. Makes zero sense. Yeah. So you want to be able to have, I know it's so bizarre. You want to be able to have a change of clothes that are comfortable, that you know will be durable, And what's funny is most of the stuff that I train in, I've kind of taken that as the same exercise. Like the stuff, what's funny to me is the stuff that I have felt have really stood up to the training that I've done and like moving around and like sweat wicking and all of that. Have either been through 511, which is so funny you said that because I love that store. I'm going to buy everything in that store if I could. Well, 511
Yes.
sponsor us, please, please.
Woohoo. Yes.
I know. Or of all the places, Tractor Supply. So,
Really?
yeah, I have found some incredibly durable like pants that I wear at the range every time that have like a ton of pockets. They don't like feel uncomfortable. They've got great stretch and they're from Tractor Supply. I'm like, damn it. These are
Okay.
so much, these are so great and they're so like not expensive at all. And so I feel like you have to really think about if there was mass panic, what would you stand out in a crowd? And I wear the same color every day. I don't think I've ever worn color on my channel because everything I own is black. But like for my kid, right? If my kid is suddenly in like a toddler tactical outfit, that's going to look weird. And so I have to think about what are comfortable but like still utility clothes that I can pack for her so that we can layer up or layer down depending on what we encounter. Does it have pockets? Is this something that I know is going to just get shredded in the wash, or is this something that's pretty durable that can, keep bugs out, And so I try to, and I'm a big believer in training with your gear. So if you want to test your gear and you feel like these pants look cool and they have all the right pockets on the rack, slap them on and go run around in them and go, see if you can actually spend hours in them and it be comfortable. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my thought process about it. But I think the biggest one that I feel like is overlooked is if you're going to stand out in a crowd, because the last thing you want to do as you're trying to flee is become a target because suddenly they recognize, oh, you have supplies with you. Oh, you guys look like you're headed somewhere safer. Where are you going? You want to try to attract as little attention as possible as you try to slip away. I mean, the best case scenario would be to get out of there with as much advance notice as possible, but that's not always feasible. And so when it's kind of a panic and you're trying to flee, you just want to be able to maintain gray man as much as you can.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. That's definitely making me think about my setup. I actually will try it on every now and then because my body fluctuates. I'm actually in a little bit of a
Everyone,
bulking
yeah.
phase with my coach. So I tried my pants on the other day and I was like, okay, I'm getting a little snug. So I'm just, like thinking about it. But I put my whole outfit on and I was like, this is kind of hot for the summer. And I like started to think I don't have a different outfit for like seasons. I just have one that has like a couple layering options, but even like my base layer is kind of hot. So
Mm-hmm.
I it is all black though. It's very tactical and not even like tactical. It's very tactical and like I would probably attract a lot of attention. So
And in some places you may not, right? I mean, it's just it's going to completely vary. And so, like, I think about my outfit. My outfit's all black because that's all I wear. So for people who know me, that looks fine. I mean, it looks like an everyday thing that I would wear. But to people in a panic, it looks like I am some secret agent. And so, you kind of have to just think about it in a view of would we just look like a normal family just trying to get by like everybody else, or would we look like we have a plan? And would that attract attention? So
yeah.
I tried to rotate through our get up and go plan and bug out bags every season change. So from hot to cold and cold to hot. Because I'm in California where we have really like only 2 seasons. It's like hot or cold. But in places where you have all 4 seasons, it's even better of an exercise to go through your supplies, your car kit. Make sure you have like an extra jacket or a hoodie if it's getting colder. But the ability to layer up and layer down in an emergency situation is such a good thing that people should think about, because there are some places where the temperature swings are brutal. Like in the high desert, sometimes I know a few folks out there that have to prep for all different temperatures because it is freezing at night and then it's brutal during the day. So it really is relative to where you are and what's comfortable for your family. But there's a few people I know that have actually, their kids are probably like 8 or 9. And for children of that age, Spider-Man backpack, totally normal. And that's a great thing to recognize, because what you don't want to give your 8-year-old a tactical backpack that's going to stand out and look completely out of place. And so sometimes that means their bug out bag's a Spider-Man backpack. So it's going to constantly change depending on your family.
Absolutely. That's such a wonderful blessing to have now. I've just totally changed the way I've looked at my setup in many ways. So thank you so much. I would kind of like to go down the path of testing gear. So does that mean like going camping with your gear, or does it just mean like going outside and trying your water purification kit?
I mean, if you can, if you have the opportunity to like go in your backyard and test gear that you would use day to day, that's great. That's a great place to start. But I am a big believer, if you want to put your preparedness to the test, to go camping. I love camping. And so now that my kid is finally old enough to where I don't have to like constantly like hold their hand and everything, then it's been a lot more fun since. But camping is an incredible way to and you can do different levels of camping. I mean, if you want to go somewhere where you take a tent with you, somewhere that still has running water, or a water source nearby where you can fish and all of that, that's fantastic. Or if you want to be completely off grid, you can test that too. There's so many ways for you to get out and really test your gear. And that's everything from your clothing to your generator to your alternative cooking methods, even rehydrating food that you have stocked up on. And you're like, well, I want to know, is this going to be good to eat if I have to and rehydrate this? What would that look like? So camping is an incredible way to test your preparedness while still making it a family activity and having fun with it, because the last thing you want to do is invest all this time and money into your gear, and you pray you never have to use it. And then the time comes and you're only then unboxing it, or you're reading the manual. So you want to just become familiar with your gear, and making sure that it's quality and you know how to use it and you know how to repair it. I know a lot of people who, like, for example, if you buy a tent and suddenly there's a tear, or one of, the legs isn't working right, or something as easy as knowing how to repair your tent for shelter is going to be such a big part of that readiness and self-reliance. But I feel like I'm guilty of this in some places too. There's a lot of people like me where you'll buy new gear and you're like, this is great, I'll get to it in like 4 weeks. Perfect. And hopefully you do, so that you can test it, but you have to make the effort, because if it's a quality issue and it's not a great product, your window of either getting your money back or asking for replacement is very narrow, right? And so the last thing you want to do is have to use it and then it's not a great product. And I say that a lot for things that you would have to depend on all the time, or not all the time, things that you would have to depend on, like a generator. I think I hear so many stories of people who are like, I'm planning for the next like pandemic. I'm planning for the next like forest fire. I'm like, great. Are you planning for the possible power outage next week? And they're like, crap. I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. I'm like, how about we start small?
That's a good point.
Let's dial it down and start small, because I guarantee you everybody has encountered a power outage. I mean, California alone, it gets too hot, power outage. It gets too cold, power outage. The winds are too strong, there's a power outage. And so that's a frequent thing out here, but there's a lot of people who, they don't think of like the very like small disruption of things like a power outage and what that could mean. Because some people, you get the wrong storm, they have no power for weeks. And for some people that is if they need to depend on, medical devices and things like that, that is life or death for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I have honestly never thought about having a generator, because my plan has always been to get out immediately, but that may not always be the need. It could just be a storm and not the end of the world. I've never even thought of preparedness on a level of like, immediate danger to like to a storm and that spectrum almost. So I'm glad we're talking about this, and I
Yeah,
hope
and I'm
anyone
happy
listening
to.
is also doing that.
But preparedness is an array of different things, and I feel like that's why I was so intrigued in sharing my own journey, because it truly is changing the narrative of prepping. I feel like people they hear prepper, and it has such a negative stigma attached to it and stereotype, but they hear the word preparedness or prepper and they think automatically like zombies or like the scorched earth. And although that's not fun either, but the very
Right.
real parts of like a power outage or like a gas leak. And so you have no gas, to your homes. We use a gas stove. I love gas stoves, but some people, that's their only option. And so now I'm forced to figure out alternative cooking methods. There's a lot of people who don't, they have, they have a gas stove and an oven, but if that was to be cut off for even routine city maintenance, which happens, right? And they're like, oh, sorry,
Right.
everybody, you're not going to have gas for 2 weeks because we've got to fix the pipes. Otherwise, it's going to be a bigger problem. What are you going to do now? You don't have a grill. You don't know, you don't have a fire pit. You're going to get takeout and DoorDash for 2 weeks. That's one, expensive, but two, that kind of takes away from learning how to cook from scratch, which are other great skills that you should probably, take the time to learn, because push come to shove, if the world's on fire, DoorDash is for sure not going to deliver your food.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I have wondered, when you test your gear, does that include all of the food, even like what is it called? Like the MRE style food that you have prepared? Like, do you actually eat that and try it, or do you? Okay.
Yeah, I've tried a few. I usually try to stick with brands that I know. I mean, I'm just gonna say they're not like Michelin star meals. They are good caloric intake and they will fit the bill, but they're not always going to be amazing. It's not like what a hot meal, fresh out of the oven, but they
Right.
work, and the things I want to make sure, especially if I'm testing food, is this something that is going to give me the caloric intake that I need and the energy? Is it just sugar? Right? You want to make sure it's balanced where you can. It's nutrition. Is this something that I can prepare with minimal effort? Some require hot water. Some are literally ready to eat out of the bag. So you have to weigh that too. Is this going to be something that is going to prompt a food allergy if anybody in my family? And does this meet any dietary restrictions that somebody in my family might have? Like, some people are extremely allergic to gluten. Some people have dietary restrictions to where they have been vegetarian their whole life, and if I try to give them meat tomorrow, they might be sick. So when I test food, I kind of take sample flavors and sample meals and test them out. But those can get pricey. I know a lot of people who will go through the effort of preserving their own food, whether it's dehydrating, whether it's freeze drying, whether that is canning. They will preserve their own food because they've either grown it, they're familiar with it, they know what their family likes, and they know where it came from, so they trust it, and they will consume the food that they had preserved. And so I try to do a combination of that. I'll buy ready-made meals and I'll test those out. I'll make sure that it kind of passes the taste test and caloric intake and all of that. And then if I like it, we're going to buy more of it, keep it handy for emergency situations. And then through that process also, I'm learning how to preserve our own food so that I can help supplement that. Because if you take a look at all of the MREs and food, preserved foods that are ready to eat that are available in the marketplace today, a single meal can be $14, if not more. That's very expensive for somebody who's like just trying to get by and make sure that they have food. And so food storage doesn't always have to be the like freeze dried food that that you see the military use. It could be something like buying extra dry goods and preserving that, and lengthening the shelf life of that, and having a good rotation plan. It's going to look different for everybody. But to answer your question, I know I'm long-winded, sorry. But to answer your question, when we go camping, we try to take a mix of emergency food that we've prepared, food that we know has a very long shelf life that I can still cook up and whip up with, minimal effort. And the latest addition to the food part of preparedness for us is learning how to grow what we can in our small home footprint. So I have a micro homestead that I've turned the side yard into. And I'm going to be honest, if anyone's listening, I'm not growing all my food. Okay. It's just not really, it's not realistic for me in my space. I don't have land. I'm doing what I can with the space that I have. But I am able to supplement my grocery bill with food that we grow, things that are in season that we consume a lot of, whether that's like onions or tomatoes, peppers. Tomatoes and peppers do fantastic out here, and we go through a lot of those. But you're just finding ways to have a very balanced supply of food, because I feel like the people who rely only on gardening or only on like food storage, stuff you can stock up on, at some point it's going to run out. Like if you focused on gardening, it really just takes one terrible year. And what are you going to do? You can't just like whip up a whole new batch of like agriculture on the side of your house. It takes time. And so I feel like you really have to approach it with a balance. You want to try to supplement each with something that is regenerative, that you're able to add on and grow more of, like through your garden, and what you're able to stock up on, like canned goods or dehydrated or freeze-dried meals, so that you have a good supply of each. So I know that sounds like a complicated math problem. I promise it's not.
No.
But I feel like a lot of people, I just feel like a lot of people, especially if they're just starting out with preparedness, they'll hyper focus on one area and think like, oh, okay, I have a whole closet of canned food, I'm good. Well, kind of, you're off to a good start, but at some point, if you don't have a plan to replenish that and rotate through your food or grow food, that's going to run out. And then what? And so, skills are a part of that too, whether that's like hunting, fishing, trapping, or gardening. Those are all things that eventually I hope more people will start talking about.
Something I have actually gone through is I've stored some long sustainable food and then developed a gluten intolerance, which I don't have celiac disease. It's not to that extreme, but I do have a gluten intolerance now. So I've separated that food as kind of like my husband's food or like my mom's food. And then I had to like get a whole new thing for my bag, which I hate to admit, but so far we only have 72 hours worth of food, which is not a lot. That is
a great, give yourself some credit, because that is so much more than a lot of people. And I'm so serious. Some people will buy a 72-hour kit online, and it's the worst. You know what's in there? It's a granola bar and like a Capri Sun. And they're like, here you go, here's 72 hours. And I'm like, this is a terrible investment. But these companies are basing these 72-hour kits to sell, based on fear. So I've been fortunate to have a lot of companies ask it to try to partner to sell bug out bags and kits. And I'm like, that just doesn't align with what I preach, because it's going to be lacking in some way. And it really should be an exercise you take on as a family. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. But give yourself some credit, because that's way more than so many people. I'm so serious. When we had, when we had like a power outage here, people they had lost their damn minds because they couldn't charge their phone. I'm so serious. It was crazy. And it wasn't even long enough for it to really affect food and water for 72 hours. This was like 24 hours, and people were like, I don't know what's happening in the world. I'm like, chill, Susan. It's been like 4 hours. Relax. So it's all over the place, but you're so much more prepared than a lot of people, is what I was trying to say.
That's I've never thought about that. People not being able to charge their phones. Actually, okay, I take that back. I did buy radios for my husband and I. We have like a mini one that can be charged via sunlight or battery or plugged in. And then it also is like hand cranked. So I got one for us, and then also my mom, just in case we do lose the ability to like look things up on our phone, weather or anything like that. I've also been looking into like, is it ham radios? The radios that you can talk long distance? Is that?
Yeah. So it does require you to, look at getting a license to operate. But I mean, if things hit the fan, no one's going to care about your license, but just so you are
Right.
able to understand how it operates. But yeah, I mean, that's a part of communications that a lot of people don't think about either. Even something as simple walkie-talkies. A lot of people don't have
Okay.
those because if the cell phone towers go down, not everybody's going to be able to read smoke signals, right? You're going to want to have an alternative method
Right.
of communication, but also something as simple as, hey, if we lose contact, we know where we're going to meet up. A lot of people don't
Yes.
even have that, right? Because if an emergency happens and
Right.
I'm at work, my husband's at work, our daughter's in school, do you know, like, and you cannot communicate, but there's an emergency. Do you know where you're going to meet up? Do you know who's getting who? And like, so that's communications isn't just the ability to literally call or make contact with somebody all the time. Sometimes it's having a plan and knowing where your rally point is going to be. So there's a lot of different ways to jump in and start, but radios are a fantastic way. And the radios that you have right now are fantastic too, because if there's ever, most emergency radios are able to connect to emergency weather stations. So they will use that channel to share emergency updates, weather updates. And so if you have even a modern emergency radio, it'll reach that. So you're still in the know. You're still able to get that communications, even if it's from a broadcast channel.
Okay. No, that's good to know. And what about satellite telephones? Is that something you typically recommend?
I would. They are pricey. I myself am looking into one. I don't have one yet. So the prepper in me is
Okay.
like, oh, I don't have one yet. But now that we are camping more, it's kind of been pushed to the like want to now priority, because the last camping trip that we had, we knew we were going to be in an area with spotty signal, but what ended up happening is we had to camp in a place that was about 40 minutes from any cell coverage. I mean, like 40 minutes drive to get one bar, just
Oh,
to,
wow.
which was like, for a content creator, I was like, oh, I can't do this. So it was very weird for me. I was like, I can't do anything. So it was very sobering and very humbling at the same time. But if there was an emergency, so thankfully we had left emergency contacts. We have alarm systems and all of that, and all the people I like would be bugging out with were with us. So I mean, we're like, that was fine. But if there was ever an emergency outside of that, communications like from the outside world, there was none of that was happening. So satellite phone for us is something that as a family we're looking into options. I know there's a wide variety of options on the marketplace today, and they can be pricey. But if you are ever in a situation where cell phone coverage is minimal or spotty, it's not really going to matter in the moment how much you paid for it, because you're going to need it. It's going to become a necessity. So now that we've changed our lifestyle a little bit more to incorporate more camping, and we're going to be in more places where cell phone coverage is not reliable, it's now kind of shot up on this like wish list to we should look at this now.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear or see the content of that. If you ever end up
Yeah, me
like
too.
posting the brand. Yes, no, absolutely. Because there are also like quite a few options out there from what I've seen. So
Mhm.
I'd love to see what you end up choosing and your experiences with it. That'll be exciting to look forward to. And
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
note of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, there have been some amazing developments in tech now too. I don't know if you're an iPhone user, but
Yes.
okay, perfect. I am too. So that's like the only
Okay.
iOS that I'm familiar with. So there have been some amazing new technological advances in some spaces, and namely with the iPhone. So the iPhone 14, they started to use SOS relay systems. So if you are ever in a place where you do not have cell phone coverage, but you're able to use that feature to connect with a satellite to relay emergency location information. You can actually tap into the emergency systems that are available nationally to try to pinpoint your location for either rescue or to guide you through things like CPR or emergency response. So if you have an iPhone 14 or whatever they come out with next, I would assume that's going to be continue to be a built-in feature. There's so many great advancements in kind of the emergency readiness space that are becoming like more mainstream, and it's exciting to see. But I don't think a lot of people know that that exists as far as a feature. So we've had I've heard a few stories because I was super interested in learning about this. I've heard a few stories where people have gone hiking and fallen, really bad falls, and there's no cell phone coverage, but their watch, which is tied to their phone, was able to help dial emergency services and connect with an overhead satellite for that signal boost. And so I would still recommend getting a satellite phone if you can, but there are some amazing advancements in technology to really hopefully bridge the gap there.
That's amazing. I have yet to hear about that. I do know about the emergency SOS. Do you click your power, you hold down the power button and volume button, and then you get the option of emergency SOS.
I want to say that's how it's triggered. Yeah. Before. No, so that's actually separate. So that is a kind of like a panic call. It should be available on most iPhones, I think. I can't remember. Yes. But that one's where it's like the 3, 2, 1, and then it's dialing emergency services, right? I've done that too on my watch and on my phone. But no, this is a brand new feature to where if you need assistance, it's going to actively seek a satellite connection for you if there's no cellular connection.
Okay. That's incredible.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. I haven't had to test it, thankfully, but it is available to my knowledge for the iPhone 14 and then future iPhones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good to know. I have the 13 Pro, so I'm like right on that.
I know, me too. Me too.
Oh man.
So we're almost there.
Yes. Almost there. Yes. I'm sure it'll start glitching to the point where I have to get like the 16 or something. So
oh my gosh, that's how it always happens.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier that made me think. So, and I've also, your content has made me want to ask you this. When, say you're out and if the emergency happens when you are at work, your husband's at work, your daughter is at school, do you have an entire kit ready to go in your car as well as at home?
Yes.
Like an entirely separate kit?
Yes. And so that's part of the journey where a lot of people feel like they're at a disadvantage, and I can understand that, where they're like, there's so much to build, it costs a lot of money. And so I don't want to make it sound like I just whipped out these car kits and bug out bags overnight. This has been a journey for the last couple years, but especially for us as a family, we spend a lot of time separate through the day and in our cars. We are always in our cars for school events, work, fun events. So in our cars, we have a dedicated car kit that I built for each of our cars. I say each, like we have hell of cars. We have 2 cars. So I keep a car kit in each of our cars, and it has a lot of the same things that you would expect to see in our bug out bag. It's probably slimmed down a little bit more simply because it's not really designed to last 72 hours. It could if stretched. And the reason I say that is because if I'm going on a work trip or somewhere where there's some distance than the normal around the corner places that I'm usually at, I will take my bug out bag in addition to the car kit that's in my car. And so it's kind of this running joke. I don't know if you've seen it on my content, but like because I have to travel for work, so I make my company pay for extra baggage because I'm like, I'm bringing my bug out bag. Sorry, you're gonna have to buy the extra bag. But my bag goes where I go because there's all my supplies. I mean, I take out a few key items for TSA. Otherwise, I might get in trouble. But for the most part, my bug out bag stays intact, and it comes with me when I travel distances that aren't, outside of our normal home radius. But The car kit it covers a lot of the same categories, things like medical, first aid, food, water, navigation, communications. And I think the only thing that's really different in the car that I stock up on are things for comfort. So like a change of clothes, shoes. And I think that just kind of comes with being a parent. Also, you realize how many times you have to change your kids' clothes for whatever reason, whether it's like, why did you roll in the mud? Or is that chocolate or is that dog poop? I can't tell. So there's
Oh, that's a
so
good
many
point.
reasons. I mean, there's so many reasons to have to change your clothes. I mean, so I keep a change of clothes depending on the season that we're in. It's a lot easier in summer because you don't have to pack like jackets and boots and everything like that. But that's probably the only major difference is that I try to keep more comfort things in the cars. But same exercise. I'm rotating through those every season change because I'm less likely to use things like sunblock in the overcast winter, and I'm less likely to use really bulky jackets in the summer. And so it's also helpful for me to go through, like in our medical kit, we have a lot of over the counter medication, those expire.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
to just stay on top of knowing what you keep in each of your emergency kits, whether it's your bug out bag or your car kit, so that you can continue to plan around that. But I do keep a dedicated car kit for each of our cars. I know it sounds redundant to some people, but there have been times where I've gone through
No.
all of the band-aids in my car kit and my bug out bag because of, kids skinning their knees or something at the park. So sometimes you need the extra
Yes.
supplies.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. I have a pretty good roadside oh shit bag in my car, but I've yet to expand that to bug out. So I'm totally just blown away. I have so many things I want to start building on now for my entire bug out setup. And I'm excited. I'm glad my husband is the audio tech for this podcast because he has
Oh,
to listen
good.
to all the episodes. So
He's
I'm
like,
excited for
great.
him
He's
to.
like, this is so exciting. I can't wait. I'm sorry, Caleb.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to be such a fun activity.
Yes, and he's so I something that I appreciate is even though like guns aren't his thing and like he's not like military or anything, he totally appreciates everything I do and like most of everything I do complements our household. Like
Yeah.
guns like in our case make this household
Their
safer
utility.
and
Yeah. They serve a purpose.
exactly. Absolutely. And I've built him an entire bug out bag. We've talked about plans to nauseum and I think it's almost also cultivated like almost teamwork between us in the sense
Yeah.
that like we have to talk about working as a team and it's been an experience together that I never thought I would have because I didn't think about that. I told you I started in junior high just with a little backpack and I didn't think about what it would be like having my own little family, even the two of us. So yeah, I'm excited
It's,
to get this going properly.
yeah. I only recently, I feel like I talk about bug out bags and kits casually, but a lot in my own content. I only recently started putting together a bug out bag supply list for people who wanted like the quick and dirty supply list that I have on my own site. Um, because I mean, I talk about it so often, but I forget that there's so many people that are probably just discovering your page and my page, and like this is so new for them, and they just feel like they don't know how to see the gaps in their supplies or know where to start. And there's so many ways to go about it because it is so subjective. But honestly, building a car kit or building a bug out bag are incredible ways to kickstart your preparedness. I feel like a lot of people, once they do that, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like, how did I not have all this stuff together before? So it's kind of an eye opener, at least it was for me, to start that road and that journey into preparedness and just thinking, always thinking about ways and always thinking about things in a preparedness perspective after that. Like when we go to major events, like if it's a sporting event or like a farmer's market, I'm like, how many people are here? Where's my family? Where are we going to meet up if we get separated? Because the crappy part is you never, like, stuff happens all the time in
Yeah.
these types of settings, and it's sad and nobody is happy about it, but they happen. And I would much rather be prepared, um, if we had to react. And I don't want to make this sound like you should be planning and prepping from a place of fear. Absolutely not. I think it's an incredible exercise to do as a family because you want to be equipped, not out of fear. And I feel like that message gets muddied a lot because a lot of people feel like prepping is super reactive, especially if you look at like the events of the last couple years. And I can see how that would be the case. But there is so much peace of mind that comes from small efforts into emergency readiness and preparedness that I feel like a lot of people don't understand until they do it, until they build like a car kit or, buy an extra few cans of food because they know they would rather have some in a pinch. So, and that's kind of just the long journey of trying to change the narrative of preparedness because again, people hear prepper and they're like doomsday prepper. Like, no, it's not. I mean, yes, but no. So
Right.
it's just kind of
The full
changing
spectrum.
exactly the whole spectrum of it.
Absolutely. And I like your kind of motto of prepared, not scared. And you're exactly right. I feel like a lot of it's come from like the marketing world, trying to get people to buy products out of fear, like you mentioned earlier with the purchasable bags that are already ready to go.
Oh yeah.
Ready to go in quotation marks for those of you that are not seeing the video. So I think I love that you're trying to undo that. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not look through all of your blog options
Oh
until
yeah, it's
like
okay.
you said website and I just went to it. You have so many resources. I think that's incredible. So for those of you that are interested in reading more and also seeing, you have an Amazon storefront and recommended items. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, but what are the items? Like, tell me more. Definitely use her website as a resource. Obviously, your
Oh, thank
your
you.
Instagram is so awesome, not only educational but hella entertaining.
Oh,
So
thanks.
I love that. But everything will be linked in the show notes. So if you're listening and you're like, I want to see a list, I want to click on some links and do my own research, that will be available to you, even if you want to click on it now while you're listening to the rest of the episode. So I want to
Thank
make
you
sure I
for
put that
that.
out there. Absolutely. When did you start blogging and making lists for people? Was it after you got like so many questions of the same thing?
I had started curating lists and trying to make content around this after I really had done the research that I needed to do for myself to prepare for myself. So everything I share, it's because I've probably looked it up and tried to plan for me. And that's why I feel like I'm happy to share the information confidently because I found a need for it. And I'm like, well, if I found a need for it, there's probably a few people that this would speak to, especially because I live in an urban environment and a lot of people who are in my same space have just feel like they can't prep because they don't have land and a farm. Um, and that also goes for a lot of I do have a chance to partner with a lot of incredible brands, and I hate it when people pay full price. And so anytime I partner with a brand to try to showcase their products because they speak to an area of preparedness that was helpful for me, I try to always include like a way for people to save money because the reality is preparedness sometimes takes money and time and effort. And so
Absolutely.
if I can save people money, I am happy to do that. But it just this
Yes.
journey has helped me not only share the preparedness that I've taken on and share back the knowledge that I've been able to curate into lists or content for folks, but also if I'm able to connect with brands that offer really incredible products that could really boost somebody's preparedness efficiently, then I'm happy to kind of be that platform to connect people, the audience with the brand because you never know what's available out there until you really start trying to plan and prep for your own family. And you're like, dang, for example, I really needed a water tank, water storage, because I don't have a well. I don't have a massive amount of land where I can just have these 1,000 gallon water totes. I just can't. I don't have the land for that. And so I was looking for a solution for me, and I found one, and I was happy to share because it worked for me. And I'm like, well, dang, I bet you there's other people who like do not have space like I do. So just little things like that. I try to make it as unique, as authentic to the cause and the mission as possible. And so it's been a lot of fun, and I get a chance to really find ways to make my own prepping efficient, but also gain a lot of recommendations from people in the community. I've learned so much being a part of this community and social media. And I know you know the feeling too, Chris. You're just like, dang, I never thought of that. So even this conversation here, I'm looking back at like some of the things that I've prepared and my answers, and I'm like, I should probably change that. Or there's a different way to look at things. So it's all beneficial. The fact that we're having this conversation, I think, is a win, because these are more conversations I feel like people should be having with their families, so that we are not responding to emergencies in a panic, you know?
Absolutely. Yes. And is that something you ever plan to make content on, like how to talk to your family members, how to like stimulate conversation in a way that doesn't provoke fear?
That's a great point. I've talked about it here and there in my stories. And because sometimes I do get those questions, I try to host, the Ask Me Anything feature on Instagram where people can just send in questions, because those are a lot of fun. And then sometimes I get some really thought provoking questions. And a lot of the time they're around, how do I talk to my partner, my family, my parents about preparedness? Because I feel like I'm the only one that's caring about this right now, and I can't get them, and they think I'm being crazy. The easiest way for me, anytime I get those questions, the easiest answer for me is just to say, well, if you have somebody who's already kind of in that mindset, it's so much easier to use factual data to lean on. And what I mean by that is just take the events of like the last couple of years, right? And it doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be any major opinion. It's things that have happened. So whether that is businesses being shut down for COVID related protocol, whether that is the train derailment that happened in Ohio and the air quality being completely affected, whether that is a natural disaster like a tornado that happens all the time, or these crazy fires that we had not too long ago in California, and same fires that are raging right now in Canada that are impacting the air quality for a lot of neighboring areas. I mean, it doesn't have to be just a natural disaster. It could be a man-made event that unfortunately has an outward ripple negative effect on the communities around them. And so you don't really have to dig deep to find events where preparedness has paid off, whether that's having reserve water, whether that's having the ability to flee quickly, or whether that's the ability to grow your own food, because for a long time, grocery store shelves were bare because we couldn't, our logistics chain was interrupted, and it's a domino effect, and we just could not get goods fast enough. So, I mean, that's everything. I mean, even something like toilet paper gate. For some people, they had extra toilet paper, and it was like having thousands of dollars for them. So yes. There's so many instances where you can use factual information that wasn't long ago to say, these are some very real scenarios where preparedness, even on a small scale, would have paid off. And I say this all the time with folks that are considering preparedness. I'm like, I don't know about you, but the last place I want to be if there is any type of disruption in supply is at the store. Because people are emotionally high, emotions are high. There's probably a low inventory on goods. People are going to be tempted to take what they need from people if they need it. Like, it's just not somewhere I would want to be unless I absolutely had to be there for necessary like supplies. And so usually when I have that very candid but real conversation with people, you can't really refute that. It's not a matter of opinion anymore. It's just, what would you have done? Like, what did you do? I know it was tough. Do you want to go through that again? And so that usually is a great way to start the conversation without it being too aggressive or too alarming, because it was so recent that a lot of people remember the pain of having to go through some of those events.
Absolutely. Yes, and thank you for all of those examples. I sometimes feel like I live under a rock because I just like some of those incidences I'm not familiar with, but the train derailment was a really big one where like I feel like a really easy thing to neglect is having like a proper air filtration system, whether that be like a mask you wear or maybe something you have in your home. I,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, well, I know why. My dad uh, changed businesses for his cardiology practice, and he gave me this like commercial grade HEPA filter. So like we
Wow.
do have this like really hefty HEPA filter that we've used before as we used it when we were moving into this house and renovating, and there were all these like paint fumes and everything, but we don't have anything like a mask. And I saw recently you posted something with your daughter and a what looked like kind of like a mini astronaut suit.
Yeah.
So
She wasn't too
was
happy, but
that
that's why,
inspired?
yes. And so she was not happy. And I was like, well, this is part of us testing the gear. And that's I mean, that's just honestly as transparent as I can make it. And I said it in the post, I think I said, this is part of the reason we test our gear, not just to make sure that the quality is good, but to also become comfortable with having to actually put this thing on. For somebody her age, this is scary. And how much more scary would it be if I'm suddenly throwing this thing over her? I'm panicked. She can hear it in my voice. I probably have my mask on already and it looks scary. But the more we can drill, the more we can try to just get used to how we are going to respond in those situations. I think the better equipped we can be as a family. But that was, I will fully admit, I did not consider child gas mask options because there aren't many. First of all, there aren't many in the marketplace that are reputable
Okay.
and quality. I didn't think about it until we had the train derailment, and you see all of these people in Ohio having to breathe in that air. And then on top of it, I'm clearly fired up about it. On top of that, they had their local municipal, powers that be saying, the air's fine. Everything's great. Poultry are dying outside. Dogs are dying because they're outside. Something's not, the math's not mathing. So,
Mathing,
um,
yes.
yeah, the math wasn't mathing. And so it was uncomfortable. And I think that was the push I needed to really make sure I sought out child friendly options, because there are trains that go through our town that I feel like a lot of people, myself included, I felt like that would never happen here. Our trains are fine. Probably people in Ohio didn't think that that would happen either. And so, we were able to witness that um, far away, but still it was really terrible to witness through the media.
Absolutely. This has all been so beneficial because even when I read about that and was like, wow, that could happen here, I didn't think of like a next step. I was just kind of like, well, shit, kind of is what
Yeah.
I thought. So I feel inspired to look
Oh,
into that.
good.
And do you feel pretty confident in the gear and in that particular mask, or is that something you're still testing and you're not ready
I
to like
do.
confirm?
So I had a chance to partner with Mira Safety. I've actually before even reaching out to Mira Safety and connecting with them as a brand, I had reached out to other preppers that I trust, and I was like, this is getting too real for me. Like, I know I have my gas mask, and I know we're looking for one for my husband as well. This is just too close to home. I mean, and so
Absolutely.
I'd reached out to other people that I trust their opinion, like another just average consumer. I went through reviews, independent reviews, and I felt comfortable based on the availability of the product and also the offerings of the product. And they are an investment. Most of your gear that you're going to rely on, it's going to be an investment. And so we took the time to save up for it so we could have a family option, and we were able, I'm fortunate enough that we were able to purchase them. But some people, even like when we had the fires a couple years ago, they couldn't even get their hands on N95 masks. And it was really, really bad for a lot of people that were elderly, children, pregnant, or respiratory issues. I mean, it was unhealthy to be outside. So you don't always have to go straight to gas masks, but if you know you're in an area that is prone to fires or poor air quality, these are things that you want to be thinking about, because you may be subjecting your family to poor conditions and just not be equipped for it.
Absolutely. Wow. I just want to say the biggest thing I've learned from this episode is the spectrum of preparedness. Like,
Oh yeah.
I've never viewed it through that lens. And I feel I feel overwhelmed in the best way possible. I feel informed, right? And I'm excited to sit down with Caleb and go over these things. And my family is so aware of they call it paranoia. I call it preparedness, to each his own. But they're aware of it. And they've actually been super supportive. I've sent them links and been like, hey, like, would you buy this for yourself? And they'd be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, especially about the satellite phones, like that's been something within the last 2 months I've been writing them about, because I have a sister in Boston. I have a sister in Colorado. And then my mom is only an hour from me. So, and then my dad's, like, he can take care of himself. So
Yeah. Don't worry about me.
I really do feel like, right. I really do feel like he could take care of himself. I feel more like I have to protect, my mom and my sisters. But that's something we've talked about. Like, what are we going to do, man? Like, there's no rendezvous point between those two places. And it might even be, from what we've discussed, it might even be more dangerous for them to have to travel and try to meet me somewhere. So I'm excited to have that conversation and inspire them by just having them listen to this episode. So thank you so much. I've learned so much. I feel like we've covered so much material in even just these 2 hours. So before we go, first of all, if there's any topic you feel like we didn't get to discuss that you'd like to talk about, please feel free. But is there anything you would like to send the listeners off with?
Yes, I would love to say that I know preparedness can feel overwhelming. I know when I first started, I was just thinking of all these things. It was still in the best way, but it still felt like a lot. Is really just to understand that it is a journey. There is no end point, but the sooner you start, the sooner you will be more equipped in just the knowledge of what you would like to work on as time goes on. And so feel empowered, feel inspired to take on your own preparedness. And that's going to look different for a lot of people. But the worst thing is just to remain complacent and to think that aid will just be readily available no matter what the circumstance. And that's really just what I hope to do with this channel and connecting with people like you and kind of sharing the message, is just to take action. And taking action doesn't have to be this large event. It could be something small like extra food or extra water, or just thinking through things from a different lens, but that all of the small steps, they add up.
Absolutely. That was, again, so beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that and for inspiring others to be more prepared for not only themselves, but their families. It seems like you've cultivated a really great community of people that love seeing what you do and learning from your process. And you put so much effort. I can just tell, because from one content creator to another, so much effort in being lighthearted and bringing this issue up in just like the best way you can, no fear mongering, but also giving people detailed reviews and cultivating a sense of like trust between you and your followers so that they can use your experiences and buy good gear that they don't also have to maybe test to the extent you test, but also should test. So you're giving them direction, in other words. And I'm just really thankful that I now have you as a resource. I think I mentioned Lisa tagged you in something, and I happened to click on who she tagged because she tagged me. And I saw your page and I was like, how the hell did I not know about this woman? So
I'm so grateful.
So excited.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have met you and have you on the podcast. So for any of you interested in exclusive content, you can become a Patreon. You'll receive a thank you note and podcast stickers. You can visit the She Shield Instagram and TikTok at She Shield Pod for updates, pictures, and videos of our guest speakers, along with podcast highlights. A special thank you to Sagetta Gear, one of the official sponsors of She Shield. For concealed carry and duty gear, you can use code SheShield10 for a 10% off yours to get a gear order and to support the pod. All resources mentioned, including all of the links you would need to see Dez's information and her blogs and resources, are going to be in the show notes. Those are the notes below the title. And if you like the podcast, you can truly help by liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. If you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will connect you with the local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you until you are ready to get it back. The link to access their website and to find a storage location or partner is available below. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, stay safe and stay vigilant. SOG knives began with the mission to reproduce the original SOG Bowie knife used by the Special Ops Unit MAC-V SOG. Today, SOG knives are carried with confidence into the most demanding situations. Forged out of tradition, hardened in the field, honed for you, whether you're protecting others or leading an epic hunting expedition, tackling one of life's everyday challenges, or facing your most extreme conditions yet, lead the way with SOG. What began as a single commemorative model soon became a full line of innovative tools, field-proven by U.S. Special Forces, even honored as the Navy SEAL knife of choice. I've personally carried SOG knives since I added knives to my everyday carry setup, and have yet to be disappointed by their design and durability. Their craftsmanship is rooted in legacy of honor and courage, and is unmatched. With SOG by your side, you are equipped to lead the way, no matter the challenge. Join the ranks of those who dare to push beyond limits and to find their own legacy, and use code SheShield to support the pod and to save. That's SHESHIELD at checkout.